and slaughtered them there. And Elijah said to Ahab, "Go, eat and drink, for there is the sound of the rushing rain." So Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Elijah went to the top of Mount Carmel. And he bowed himself down on the earth and put his face between his knees. And he said to his servant, "Go up now and look at the sea." And he went up and looked, and there was nothing. He said, "Go again 7 times. And at the 7th time he said, "Look, a cloud like a man's hand is rising from the sea." And he said, "Go up and say to Ahab, prepare your chariots and go down, lest the rain stop you." And in a little while the heavens grew black, and the clouds and the wind, and there was a great rain. And Ahab rode and went to Jezreel, and at the hand of the Lord was Elijah. And the hand of the Lord was on Elijah, and he gathered up his garment and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Now Ahab's wife heard the news of what happened with Elijah, and she orders that Elijah must be killed this day, and if Elijah doesn't die in the same manner that he slaughtered all the prophets of Baal, that may God or the gods do the same to her as well. And this frightened Elijah. So as Elijah is more frightened about men and people and their opinions and the harm they could do to him. Yet sometimes forgetting where is God's hand in all of this. So Elijah removes himself and goes for a day's journey into the wilderness. He finds a nice tree, the broom tree, and he lays down under the broom tree and he says, "God, oh God, let me die. Is it not enough now? Have I done enough now? For I am no different than my fathers." As those people of Baal were going about trying to kill all the prophets of the Lord, and yet in the end, Elijah did exactly what they did. See, that's the thing. If they hate you today, don't worry. They're going to hate me tomorrow. And so Elijah was afraid, and an angel of the Lord comes to Elijah while he's sleeping. And he touches him and he says, "Arise and eat." And there Elijah sees a cake at the head of the bed, cooking on a hot stone, and a jar full of water. And he eats the cake and drinks the water and goes back to sleep. And then a second time the angel of the Lord comes and touches Elijah. "Wake up and eat, because the food you have is not enough for the journey." And so he wakes up and he eats some more. And then on the energy of that food, he goes into the wilderness for 40 days and for 40 nights. Right? Isn't that Jesus, who goes into the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights to be tempted by the devil? And Jesus says we do not live on bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. There he comes to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and he said to him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I, am left. And they seek my life to take it away." And he said, "Go and stand at the mount, on the mount for the Lord." And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great strong wind tore the mountains and broke into pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. and behold, there came a voice to him and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" And he said, "I have been very jealous for the Lord, for the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I, only am left, and they seek my life to take it away." And the Lord said to him, "Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive, you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nimshi you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elijah the son of Shaphat of Abel and Mahalo you shall anoint to be the prophet in your place. And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall find Jehu put to death. And Jehu shall have them put to death. And the one who escapes from the sword of Jehu shall be put to death by Elijah. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. And that's why I asked, do you think God made a mistake when he chose Elijah? And do you think Elijah failed God? As he asked Elijah, "What are you doing here? What is your purpose in life?" Can the potter or the pot say to the potter, "Why have you made me? You have fumbled me up with your crooked and fumbly fingers. What are you doing to me in my life?" Yet Elijah did God's will perfectly. And God didn't make a mistake by choosing Elijah. And you know how I know God didn't make a mistake by choosing Elijah? Because you know that the Lord is your God. You know who the Lord your God is. And you know who the Lord your God is because of the faith of Elijah. If God asked you to do something, would you do it? And evidence of your faith is the works behind doing what God asked you to do. In the same way, God has asked me to tell the world Jesus Christ is coming and is coming soon. That Jesus Christ has heard your prayers and he loves you. And he loves you more than this world and the existence of this world can express. And he has not forgotten you. And even though my family and the people who are supposed to be supporting me don't support me and don't believe me and don't think that anything I can do or are doing is any good or any value, I know God would not have asked me to do something unless it had good, unless it had value. And so I come day in and day out to show you my faith in God. In a God who cannot be seen, in a God who people say cannot be known. But I'm telling you, God can be seen, God can be known, and God is a reality in our lives today. And I thank you for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. I pray and hope that you'd come to understand that God is doing these things and using these people to help display and manifest his goodness. It's not about God needs me. It's about God displaying his love for you through a wretch like me. Through a wretch like me. If God asked you to do something, would you do it? And I tell you the truth, Jesus has commanded us to love as he has loved you as he has loved you. Why do the scriptures say Elijah must come first? Right? Because Elijah soaked and did everything according to God's will. He soaked the ram or the bull in water, not one time, but 3 times. In order to manifest salvation, Jesus Christ. I want you to know that both Moses and Elijah saw Jesus Christ standing there at the Mount of Olives there, or wherever they were, at the Transfiguration. At the Transfiguration. And it was from there a cloud came, and a voice come from the cloud, "Listen to my son in whom I love." And when the cloud disappeared, and there was only one thing that could be seen, and that was Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ said to the witnesses who saw Moses and Elijah speak to the Lord, they saw Jesus. Jesus says to his disciples, "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid." And so I want to leave that with you. That even if your family rejects you, don't be afraid. God is still with you. Even if the whole nation rejects you, don't be afraid. God is still with you. Even if you believe that you're the only person left on earth who believes or worships in the one true God, don't be afraid. For no one can lay a hand upon you unless God wills it. You're in the hand of God. Trust in him and believe in him. Have a great night. I love you, and I'll see you next time.